Let's just jump into it, guys. Let's just jump into it. How's it going?
Really well.
Okay, well, I'm recording right now and we're live. So what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Thanks for joining us again this week. Oh, I see someone just joined our Discord. That's going to be good for next week. So how's this week been? This week we had the new Mysteries of Summer quests being added. And what is the earns for it? A pink title and also a black Pegasus for the first person to complete it. Have you guys been getting into the Mysteries of Summer this year?
I have. And don't forget about the pearls, all right?
Oh, you get pearls too. Oh.
150k.
Now, is this for the first person completing it or for completing it all?
There's a graphic you can probably show if you're recording while we're talking about it, but it's like 150 for first, and then it just trickles down from there.
I think the lowest prize is 3k pearls for like 10th place or something, or am I lowballing it?
I can't really remember.
But yeah, overall, I mean, I've so far had quite a bit of fun with Mysteries of Summer. Like I've been waking up at 3 a.m. because that's when the hints come out, and I've been trying to basically be pretty competitive with it. Unfortunately, they had to pause it this week, but I think that they did it in a really fair manner, and they're starting it up here on our patch coming this Wednesday.
Yeah, I was like super happy with how they paused it because there was like a bug with the quest, and they were smart enough to understand that, oh, hey, last year we literally had people like have to switch characters for the quest line. Like we had to do some crazy shit last year. So for them handling the bug this year coming around saying, hey, you're not actually supposed to do that. And then how they handled it was like, yeah, I'm really happy about it. So
Are you guys happy with the fact that they're not taking any action against people who were intentionally using the bug? Do you feel like it was too much of a gray area?
yeah, it's far too much of a gray area. Like I said, last year you had to switch characters. You had to have like literally like certain quests on your quest log and forfeit all the other quests. Like there's a million things you could possibly argue that were bugs last year, but you actually had to do. The only reason why people were like questioning about it less. I actually don't know why people questioned any of those less. Probably because they worked so easily. I don't know, or because they got data mined. But and I don't think that this got data mined what people are using this time. So it's just too much, way too much of a gray area to punish people, especially if somebody's like, oh hey John, this is how I got the key of truth was this way. This is what you have to do, and none the wiser John. Oh, okay, yeah, I got you. I can do that. That's really crazy. That and then they do it, and then they like get banned. Like that'd be super unfair. And
Yeah, and to add on to that, like I think the problem with taking punishment to people is that some people were, yes, they were very blatantly doing something that's wrong, and they should have known that. They were disabling cores on their CPU, they were dropping their frames like crazy. But then there's other people that simply logged in after relogging and were able to interact with it just because they might have been on slower machines or whatever may be the cause. And so how do you differentiate between somebody that might just be on a bad PC and then somebody that's not? So I think just pausing the whole Mystery of Summer and changing the way that the quest line is completed for the next two quests was probably the best thing they could have done without, making any drastic changes that affect other players' accounts.
yeah, they're even compensating people above that. That's what blew me away was I didn't know what to expect from them.
I'm surprised.
Yeah,
That's the first I've heard of that.
Yeah, they're not only like causing us to think about it, they're not causing us to think about it. They're apologizing that there's a bug, which okay, we play video games, but I don't blame them for having a bug in the quest line. That is such an obscure bug. You can't test for that shit, really. I mean, they wanted to push it out quickly. Whatever, bugs happen. But not only are they pausing it, they're rolling people back, but they're compensating everybody as well, which they did not need to do. So I'm blown away. That was a really good PR move, and yeah, I'm happy about it. It's fine.
Well, that's surprising to hear. And even last year too, we were talking about this last week. That like last year, I enjoyed that they gave the special titles last year, and it's. I mean, I myself was a little bummed out that we didn't get a replay of it, but I don't think we had like issues like this last year though. Like we didn't run into this kind of. I think even if we ran into, I don't remember any like notable issues, but even then, like I don't think we even saw some of the action that they're taking now last year and forced into this year. So that's the first time I'm hearing of that. But hearing that, like to me myself, makes me feel reassured that at least some efforts or more efforts being put into this and being taken more seriously. Because I mean, they got some pretty great prizes. That Black Pegasus is definitely something that I know a lot of people are going to want to get. So those players who are really trying and actually giving their hearts into it, I'm sure. I mean, I mean, I can only assume that people are going to be appreciative of the actions being taken. I would assume, but it also does kind of suck that it's happening right in the middle of it. So we have a lot coming out in the near future here. We have Vanilla WoW, big drop that people have been anticipating. What is this? This is next month. This month. This is in the month of August. So my first question to you guys is: do you guys plan on playing it?
No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
So I've had this like conspiracy theory that we haven't seen like too much notable content, if you will. I mean, the new class coming out, and then I mean all the cash shop driven content that's to come with that class. But I've had this conspiracy theory that I think that there might be the potential of like some new content and really impacting content could drop like as Vanilla WoW gets closer. Do you guys think there's going to be any like shocking surprise that they might introduce to the community? Maybe a new, like I said, that I wouldn't be surprised if they actually dropped the new region as we got closer to it to maybe even compete with that.
I think they're.
They said that's
totally
winter
oblivious.
already.
So my question to you guys is: do you think you're going to see anything coming out of the devs like that might compete with or try to compete or impact their players as the launch of Vanilla WoW gets closer? Because I mean, we have a fishing event happening, right? But I feel like that's going to end close to the time that that World of Warcraft drops, isn't it? Because we're supposed to get one coming up this week.
I don't
believe.
know, man. I have always kind of felt like the NAEU, or really all the non-Korean versions of Black Desert, are sort of an afterthought. I don't really know if they have a dedicated strategy as far as releasing new content to compete with other games or anything like that.
Yeah, that's
If you
kind of
meant
what I was thinking too. Is like we thought that last year with the release of Dragon, is that maybe to compete with Bless or show that BDO has new content or whatever, that they're going to be dropping Dragon, but we didn't get Dragon till several weeks or maybe a month later. So I'm not sure if they really think about competition in that way, and I wouldn't really expect it unless it was just coincidence.
well, they said the Odalita wouldn't be released until the winter anyway, so it's definitely not that. And when they released Battle for Azeroth, they didn't release anything, so there was no competition against that.
Yeah, I don't think
Well-
they give a fuck about anything. They just kind of release shit
Yeah.
whenever they want.
And when Odalita comes out, it'll be in Korea, and then 8 months later, it'll come out in NA. So yeah, I don't think that's really going to have. I don't think there's anything big that's on the horizon over the next month. I mean, if we're super lucky, maybe we'll get the mono stuff that was supposed to come out in June. But
What do you? What's the holdup with Manos?
I guess they're trying to complete all of the Monos life skills before they release them in the West. That's the only possible thing that I could think of that's still delaying it. There's so many life skillers that are just sitting there waiting. I've even like when it comes to making YouTube guides, I keep waiting to make like a new gathering guide or a new cooking guide or whatever, because I keep feeling like Monos is around the corner, but then I felt that way for a year straight now, and I just haven't made any guides, and I wish they would just release it so I could start making content again.
I agree with
I think-
you, Marlon. Like I put
Yeah.
a hold on all my life skilling stuff June last year because we're like,
Same.
oh, Manos is coming out, and so I've just been a fisher for over a year. All my stuff is just stacking up, and I'm anticipating this content, and it's just not coming.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've been stockpiling shit for months on end, and now I'm almost guru one fishing. So
Damn. And here I am.
I think the most we can hope for is the CE content.
Oh,
Yeah.
the Great Sea. You guys have any Like, is there anything you might be anticipating with that as well? Because like, as soon as I see the Great Sea, I'm like, oh great, bigger boat. Here we go. More to spend 3 weeks building a bigger boat. I really don't know what to anticipate with that though.
I'm just really excited about the boats. I hate these boats with oars and stuff. Those boats they previewed look really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like they're gearing more towards like single person. I don't know if I have no idea what I'm talking about, but it seems like they're gearing more towards like single player boats that are still really great, meaning you hop on your boat, you can shoot cannons, you can ram, you're like just in total control, and it's just more like individualized and less gated by like needing people on your boat in order to do well, I guess. So
Yeah,
maybe
I'm
like more
personally I'm
content or
looking pretty
something.
forward to it too. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I used to be in a couple of different sea monster hunting guilds because, I mean, I like to stay pretty competitive, and when sea monster hunting was a thing, I wanted to get in on it. And while my intentions were pretty money driven, I kind of found an enjoyment about being in the great ocean, and so having more content out there that I hope doesn't negatively affect the economy like sea monster hunting did, but is still entertaining would be a really, really nice thing. So I seriously hope that they do it well and, don't make any game breaking, money making methods along the way.
Finally coming out with ship costumes, $30. I can see it now. Finally being able to put different plates on your frigate, on your fishing boat. Wait, no, it's sorry, they already have costumes for fishing boats. What am I saying?
They did say they're gonna have something out for I don't know how, again, we never know how far along these things they say are, but I'm really interested on hearing about what they have in store for people who have guru fishing and guru farming. Because they like touched on that during the Huddle Ball, and I don't know if that means we're going to be seeing it when the Great Sea comes out for fishing at
Oh
least.
yeah, underwater fish farms. I forgot about that.
Yeah, really interesting.
Underwater fish farms.
That's what they said. They said you're going to combine your life skills and make underwater fish farms was the example that they used. So hopefully that doesn't go the way of, climbing or face making or the other things they have announced.
I want climbing so bad. They announced it like a year and a half ago now. I want it so bad.
So when are we all playing Minecraft? Because Minecraft's the big game right now. When are we all playing Minecraft together?
I've been watching Morrolan play Minecraft on his channel, and I'm kind of into it. I almost DM'd him, and I'm like, yo, like, is that a live server? Can I get in on that? Like, I saw him
Yeah,
building his
dude,
lava
get in
wall.
on
Like,
that.
Is it whitelisted? Can you whitelist us?
I mean, you have to have the server info to get in. It's not a public IP, but yeah, I can get you guys in there, of course.
Oh, sweet, sweet, sweet. Heck yeah, man. Looking
I
forward
mean,
to it. Next
I don't know
podcast, it'll
about
be all of us just playing Minecraft while we talk about BDO.
yeah, as long as Layvan promises not to grieve.
Fair enough.
Oh yeah, are you gonna play with us if we disable PvP?
Disable? Like completely?
PvP's turned on. I just don't want people destroying each other's bases and stuff.
Oh, I don't know. I don't destroy bases. I only kill.
I'll have a code of honor.
Just everyone's farms. Just the next day they show up and they're just all their animals are missing. So we have a lot of classes getting worked on. I think one of the recent ones we saw was Kuno. We've seen Striker. We've seen like we hear a lot of anticipation for like what's and who's going to be next. I think one of the ones that I do think is going to start seeing PvE love is Ninja. Have you guys had any guesses on anything you think they're going to be working on next? Because we see a lot of, it seems like a very class individual focus.
Well, they said they're gonna do a succession, which is like a pre-awakened buff of some kind. And that they said warrior was gonna be first. And they said that was gonna be this summer. Probably not this summer for us, but I guess for Korea that should be just around the corner. Where they want to make it so that people who are kind of nostalgic for pre-awakening can thrive without using their awakening at all. I don't think they're going to lock awakening or anything like that, but there's some kind of bonus coming to the main hand where people can just use that as their main kit. And I'm super excited to see how that looks because that was my favorite era of the game when we were all just running around pre-awaken.
I'm personally a little bit worried about that. Like, I understand that people are nostalgic for pre-awaken, but I just don't want to see such a drastic combat change that might really undermine like the balance that we, somewhat balance that we have right now. Because when we saw, basically they did the evolution of the combat system where they made it the CC system was now 2, and they started taking CCs off of super armors and all kinds of things like that. It kind of really hurt the player base, and I feel like the game has kind of built itself back up from that point, and creating a game breaking combat change potentially could ruin that once more. So I like the idea. I just hope it's executed well, because if they somehow buff pre-awaken in a flat rate across all classes, it could result in like rangers being super overpowered, ninjas super overpowered, and then certain classes that don't use their pre-awakening at all could be very underpowered as a result. So it's really going to depend on execution for me.
I wonder if they let me just use my awakening, I could just leg drop all the time. They could like cut my
That's the
cooldown in
thing.
half.
Yeah, I'm pretty much agreeing with Choice. Is like right now, like this very second, is the most balance that this game has ever had.
Really?
Ever.
What?
Like I
That's-
really do
that's-
think so.
Let's touch.
I really-
Let's touch on this.
Well, maybe not during the plus 15 aura when everybody had, when plus 15 was the cap and everybody was, pre-awakened, sure. But like since Awakening, I would definitely argue that this is the most balanced the game has ever been, without a doubt.
If I was a ninja
Because-
main, I might say that too, though.
Well, because we were like super underbalanced back then, and now we're like with it. I don't know, man. I think having people are a lot less protected now, which is really, really great. The renown system is gone, thank Christ. Like people have to pay more attention. Mystics are not just absolute animals, and warriors are not protected literally forever in lingering super armors. Like, is definitely, in my opinion, is definitely some of the most balanced gameplay that we've had since Awakening came out, for sure. So the fact that they're releasing or even talking about a succession system before they continue to balance right now worries me too, because they should just stick on balancing what we have now before throwing extra shit in there, in my opinion.
Give it a little
Un-
time, see how it goes.
Unless they're using that to try to balance, but I just don't know if that's a very good idea. I don't know. How do you guys think it's not the most balanced it's been right now? That's what.
Well, my opinion's short. I'm gonna just go first here, and it's an MMO. It's an MMO with MMO PvP. I don't think we're ever gonna have like a fine balance, though. I'm not in full agreement or disagreement with your comment either, because it's just MMO PvP. Other classes have counters, etc., which makes sense, but I still think, like, when I compare the two, I think of like as a whole in PvP, yeah, I would agree with your comment. I think I'm more on the disagreement side in terms of like PvE, because there's some classes that are just still really shit grinders, and there's people that have still rolled off their class because of some of those changes that have been made, from as simple as like stamina. But that's my take on it.
Well, large scale is clearly not balanced. There's 3 to 4 classes that are way, way stronger than every other class.
What would those
and
three be
that's
to you?
been the case for. What's that?
What are those 3 classes for you?
Well, witch, wizard, and archer for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then
Absolutely.
I would put berserker up there as well. Just their mixture of tankiness and range damage and range knockdowns and everything else, I think puts them quite a bit above every other class. If you compare any of those classes to blade classes or short sword classes or long sword classes, I just think there's no comparison at all. You're clearly at a severe disadvantage. In 1v1, I mean, yeah, I think it's in a pretty good state. I definitely think that there was a lot more balance in the pre-awaken era. I felt like that was a time where any class could beat any other class. That's how it felt on the Xbox launch when we were all running around in plus 15. Like every matchup felt interesting. There were still like Rangers and Sorks kind of still felt broken with their iframes and with the range damage. So I could definitely see how it becomes unbalanced again if Rangers can just shotgun spam like they used to. But I don't know. I still had a lot more fun running around with the longsword back, when I was playing on Xbox before the Awakening came out.
Oh, I agree. I will forever live in the nostalgia of playing PC back in those days. That was the best. But we're just so far beyond that now. It sucks.
I just want to like quickly touch on what you said about those certain classes that were super strong at large scale. I don't disagree at all, but it's really interesting being in Black Rose, and we have such an interesting comp because we're very Witch Wiz light, and we don't really care what kind of class you are. And so as a result, we have a lot of DKs, we have Sorks, we've got Kunos and Ninjas and all kinds of different classes. And oftentimes, when I see the list of the classes that top frag, a lot of it really is pretty gear dependent. Mostly the more geared players seem to do well regardless of class. Like if I use Last Siege as some kind of evidence of that, like a ninja top fragged by long shot, like 30% more kills than the next lowest person, which was a Velk. And then we had a Tamer, and then a Berserker, and then like a Wizard. So it's pretty interesting to see that when by and large, it's definitely evident that certain classes have a better toolkit for that, but class gear can really make a huge difference in bringing those frags up even on a non-meta class.
Was that on 100 man where the ninja top frag?
That was Last Siege, yeah. So we had about
okay.
like 90 attendance or something.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty impressive. And there's always like standout individual players who can make that class shine. But I think overall, if you average everything together, there's a few classes that clearly stand out. And obviously gear can trump anything in this game. If you have a big enough gear gap, your class doesn't matter. But I remember back when Vertex was still being led by Rudani and Sov, and we had a lot better gear and we were more competitive. Wouldn't Sasha like pretty consistently blame Black Rose's losses on class comp, like, and kind of make fun of Vertex for being so heavy with Wizards and Witches?
Yeah, there's no argument that witches and wizards they're the only thing that carry large scale to
What about
to the greatest
Shies?
extent. Because
I don't know if
PA.
this sounds ridiculous, but what about Shies now too? We haven't seen
Well,
too
Shies
much
are a different story
implemented
now.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, right.
I won't
yeah,
change.
they-
I won't change the topic here.
Yeah. I'll touch on Shies, but like, just large scale in general is balanced based off of PAs. Everything is just based off of PA. If you can have a longer PA rotation than your enemy, you win. It's 999 DP. Okay, so like, especially if you're gear dependent, or not gear dependent rather, but if you're equalizing gear and everything, all of large scale is just how well are your PA groups for the most part, in majority, not obviously all of it, but yes, you can absolutely win or fail a node war based off of your PA usage for sure. Shies are like a slight difference. I think they're definitely more relevant in guilds that don't have like after PAs are done, obviously, but I definitely think Shies are shaking things up a little bit for sure.
I just wish they would put PA on Shy and take it away from WizWitch and then
I
buff
agree.
their skills
Totally
to
agree with that.
make
I
up for
totally
that.
agree.
Because I don't know, like it seems like they want to have traditional support classes, obviously with Shy coming out, and that sort of seems like a warranted change now that we have a true support class. And that way there, I mean, it can be good for Wizards and Witches at the same time because now they're no longer looked at as the support class and they're more of an independent. And I think PA as itself is really a broken skill for a class that can also kill you. And so it kind of fits with the Shy toolkit.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they need to work on Shy's bubble or incorporate PA with that bubble or something, and yeah, take it away from casters.
How deadly?
Just make it a
would
self PA. Like Infinite Fortitude, the Mystic one. Just give them that, like an ice block, It should
That'd be cool.
because it's not just that. They also have the best heal. They have better heal than Shy because it's percent based and it can fully heal you. The Shy one is slow, so the
Yeah.
heal is better. Then they have speed spell. Then their Awakening buff will also buff you. It's like kind of absurd, and I don't think they actually need anything. If you compensate them by giving them something for removing this stuff, they become very scary because Wizards and Witches already, especially after the recent buffs with Voltaic, like it's already really fucking scary to face geared Wizards and Witches at the moment. I don't think they need anything.
Yeah.
They just need their support skills toned down because
I don't think
Absolutely.
it
they
makes
need
no
anything
sense.
either. I don't think they need any trade-off. If you just deleted PA from the game would just be flat out better across the board. I don't think
Yeah.
Witch and Wizard would
Completely
suddenly be a
agree.
dead class or anything like that.
Same here.
They have
If they
amazing
made-
AoE damage.
What if they made PA like a superior whale tendon potion, so 125 DR, and it was personal? I think that would be a pretty good compromise.
Yeah, sure. People
Sure.
want it self buff. I think that's fine. It's such an overpowered umbrella kind of like it's just like Layvan said. It determines all the pushes that happen. It determines who wins. Like it's way too much of a single factor in large scale fights. If anyone's gonna have it, like Joy said, put it on Shy. That's fine. Whatever.
Now, I haven't really looked too much into Shy Awakening myself. I'm not sure how, like, they had their Awakening item. Do you guys know how this is obtained?
Say it again. You were talking about Shy's Awakening?
The Shy's Awakening. They have their musical kit. I don't play Shy. I haven't looked into it. I haven't done much research into it. All I just know is that their Awakening is different. Is this all?
Yeah.
I would imagine it's their own unique item for their Awakening slot.
Yeah, so
So-
I'm actually gearing up a Shy right now because
how is it obtained?
so it's just through the Awakening quest. You go do it and you get it.
I got you. Okay, so
it gives you
there's no upgradable version or of anything because
Yes.
I myself found it surprising that there wasn't like just the regular traditional Awakening weapon also being able to obtain it through Dandy Box, etc. I thought that's what we were going to see as soon as it hit for that class.
No. Yeah, so Shy's Awakening, it is upgradable. You get there's two different awakenings you get from doing the quest. One's blue, I'm guessing to like kind of play off of Laverta maybe, or just the blue awakenings.
Mhm.
And then one is a yellow, which is obviously a play off of Boss Gear. The more you enhance the awakening, the higher percentage values are for the buffs that you give to the people around you.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It's really
Is it a
interesting.
notable jump like going try to pen? Are they big percentages or do you just kind of like make a try and
It is. You definitely want to get Tet, absolutely. I mean, very obviously, if you're maining the class, you're going to want to get it. But I do think that the differences are pretty notable. I think they should be still like tuned, no pun intended, a little bit better.
God damn it.
But but yeah, it's notable.
God, it's good
I
to
thi-
have you back, man.
I really like the idea of having a peer support class. Like whenever I hear that little flute on the battlefield, I feel so safe.
Yeah, I mean, 1,500 HP given to you from a Shy.
So that wasn't a
You know-
typo.
No, yeah, a Shy can give you 1,500 HP. So if you like get a lot of your Shies to cast that, plus you do like the guild 1,500, or is it 1,000? Maybe it's 1,000 flat. But if you do the guild buff that gives you 1,000 HP, I mean that's an extra 2,500 HP you're giving to everybody. That's like my entire health pool doubled.
God damn. Now we have a lot of things happening in the near future too. I don't know if we touched on this last time, but E3 was recently, and then one of the announcements that I didn't see coming was I knew it was going to come out on PlayStation eventually, but I thought it was going to be within. I thought it was going to be much further time away though. I can't word right now. But PlayStation 4, I've had I myself on my stream, I've been having people coming in asking about PS4. They've already got the bundles on sale that people can pick up. But the thing is when the game came out on Xbox, they had a much different style of launch. They had classes on launch that PC didn't have. We had lawn strikers in the opening of everything. My question to you guys is, do you think that PS4 is going to mirror a similar launch that Xbox had?
Yeah, I think it'll be basically the same. Now that they have a set of things that they implemented with Xbox, I think they'll just do exactly the same for console. I don't really think that they're going to change any of that. It even followed a very similar formula to like the way that new PC regions would open. Like we would ask players from SEA what order they got things in, and based on that, we could predict like pretty accurately what order we would get things on Xbox. So I think for PS4, they're just going to basically copy what they did for Xbox exactly.
So, Morlan, you're kind of like our resident Xbox expert. Do you think that there's any lessons learned from the Xbox launch that's going to be like not mirrored in the PS4 launch? Do you think there's going to be any changes, or what do you
No,
think?
I think there are lessons they should have learned. I don't think that there's any lessons that they did learn. I think it's going to be exactly the same.
What were some of the?
They
Can you give us some of the pros and cons in more detail that maybe you
Yeah,
think you
yeah,
experienced on
for
Xbox?
sure. So I think that one of the biggest mistakes that they're making with these new releases is the speed at which they plow through content. There was definitely like some golden eras of BDO, like the Calphian era and the Medea era. I have a lot of really good memories from those pieces of the game. And having the Calphian era on Xbox was 2 weeks. We got Medea after 2 weeks,
That
and
sucks.
then the Medea era was a little bit longer, but it was also like Azulas were immediately in the game, and the Black Abyssal weapon was immediately in the game. Like the gearing was much faster. It felt like everything you did in Calphion didn't matter,
The
and
Black
then
Abyssal was already in the game.
yeah, and
Wow.
then like the roaring armor was rushed out, although it was bugged, so I don't. It kind of wasn't rushed out, but I think for PS4 it will be rushed out. And then like when Valencia dropped, it was the same thing. Like it kind of felt like all of your progress in Media didn't really matter because you could immediately go for tri weapons, and all the work that you did for plus 15 was kind of like the pace was just too fast. It felt like it almost felt like a theme park World of Warcraft style reset where like your gear and the work that you did didn't matter because there was just something new that was going to make all your work obsolete. So I really didn't like the pace that they released things. I think they could stretch it out more. I don't understand the rush to get to like the current state of the game. Part of the fun in MMOs is that journey, that kind of like slow build of progression. And I think each of those eras of the game had something unique and interesting to offer, and I don't really see why we need to skip them as if they're like inferior to the current state of the game.
I agree with that. I used to say that about South America, though. When that server was released, it plowed through content so fast, and then they just accelerated it even further with Xbox. They just never stayed in a state of the game. I mean, I remember GVGs over thousands. We had Medea for quite a while before Valencia being released, and it was really fun,
Oh
but you
yeah,
just skip
that's the best open world PvP the game has is the
yeah.
Calphian and Medea era. You have fights
Oh
at
yeah.
like Hex Sanctuary and Mancha Forest, and then when Medea comes out, you have all the fights breaking out at Sazens, and the world is still small enough at that point that one little scrap over a grind spot can turn into a 30v30 in like less than 10 minutes, and that's the only time that's ever going to happen. And it's a bummer that they rush through it and get to the part where there's benefits of the game opening up and being big and having more grind spots and more content as well, for sure. But I just don't like how they rushed through those beginning eras because they were, they had something special to offer.
And then I believe Talk of the Town around this current time is also, hey, what's up, Namiko? Thanks for being here, dude. We're currently talking about
Hello.
console and PS4, and we're on the Xbox topic comparing Xbox to the launch of PS4 that'll be coming out. We're talking about what we think the pace of the launch is going to be like, and if we think they're going to do it any differently, because when it came out on Xbox, they had some different classes that came out on PC, but then now they have PlayStation 4, so we're grabbing everyone's opinion on if we think the launch is going to be any different or if it's just going to mirror the exact same thing. And then getting back up to speed, I believe the talk of the town right now at this current point in time of this recording, I believe Comma is just about to come out for Xbox, and yeah, the in which the pace content sounds like it's coming out and how you've also described it. It also makes me wonder like how soon they're going to get the Dream Horses to come out, and I wonder if it's going to be more of an immediate thing or shortly after, and then how much sooner we're going to see the console also be introduced to Dregan, which still needs work, by the way.
I mean, at this point, like now that pin gears in the game and everything else, I don't think it hurts too much if they want to rush like Kama or Drigan. I think they're kind of just like fleshing out those expansions, especially Drigan, didn't really feel like a new era of the game. It kind of just felt like a new kind of side area to explore. So I don't really care if they pound that out.
I
It was
loved
mainly the
Kama. I loved when Kama came out. Drigan, no. Kama, like, anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think Kama, I mean, it was a great new like landmass, but it didn't really change your progression or your gear. There was a few things. You got your gen crystals or whatever, but you know what I mean? It didn't change the pace of the game or like how you played it. It just kind of gave you a couple new spots to go to. The
Yeah.
other expansions like Medaya and Valencia were much more like game-changing expansions where like the fundamental experience of BDO was different, especially Valencia.
Absolutely. I mean, the Medaya and Calpheon are arrows are the only arrows I can imagine. I remember GVGs happening because of guild missions. When is the last time that you've legitimately had a GVG because of trying to complete a guild mission?
Never.
Like fucking never, never. But then, like, I mean, we had GVGs over Cyclops guild missions. You know, like it's like, so yeah, it does blow. I didn't know they blew through. I wasn't paying attention. They said they blew through content that fast, and yeah, that really sucks that they just got rid of the plus 15 arrows so fast. Because if I knew that were as a console player, if I knew that was going to be the case, if I was like intelligent and like researching the game before I went into it, I would just AFK fish or whatever, or just life skill and save up money until maybe, like until Valencia came out or even Kama, and then just like insta buy everything and be one of the most geared players in the game then, instead of having to spend money on shit gear that's just going to benefit you for like a month.
Well, speaking on the similar kind of topic, if we're talking about content releases and Xbox, and I remember specifically when Drigan came out, and it was really disappointing because we already knew everything that was in Drigan, and it didn't help that there was no content in there. So not only have we seen Korea play Drigan and go through content for like 8 months, but then when it was released, there wasn't much content. Kama was a little bit better. There was more stuff there. So we'd seen it, but it wasn't so bad. But I remember my favorite was actually Valencia because it was so new. I think the distribution between information about what was going on in a Korean update with Valencia was not nearly as good as it is now within Ben Global and all the other things like that. So it feels like now when we get new content, it's like I've already kind of experienced it, so it doesn't feel as fresh. So I feel like for the PC, it's a big problem right now that we're still getting delays with the Korean server. I think we should be absolutely caught up, or at the very worst, everything should be at the most a week behind. Like how long it took us to get Drieged in the underwater spot, for example, and then we still don't have Manos, etc., etc. But what really worries me is if they do delay Ordalita, as I think Morrolan pointed out, that would be like really, really bad. I think it would be much better if it was a global release like Archer, so that every region could experience it and it'd be completely fresh, rather than us see it for months and months and months, see the content ahead of time, and then, well, when we get it, it's not nearly as new or fresh feeling. I don't know if you guys feel the same.
Yeah,
I
totally
agree with you
agree.
wholeheartedly.
Think of what percentage of their players are being basically robbed of like that new discovery feeling that's supposed to be core to an MMO. I mean, how much of the player base do you think is actually in Korea, like worldwide? It's got to be maybe like 20 or 30% tops. I mean, you've got NA,
it's a small
EU,
percent in
SEA,
comparison.
yeah, like maybe even less than that. And so you have this small chunk of 10 or 20% of your players who get to experience everything fresh, and then everyone else just gets spoilers for months and months. And then like you said, when the content comes out, that sense of discovery is just far in the past.
Mm-hmm. And for such a like competitive game, everybody, if you're not doing all the research you can possibly do how to min-max the new content, then you're going to be falling behind. So not only does it take away the discovery, but like it basically erases half of the work they did, because we don't go through trial and error. We know exactly what to do, and that's all we do is min-max, and that's all we give a shit about. So it kind of robs themselves of work, even as like having not like a completely global release.
Yeah. And if I can think back to some of my most like excited moments in BDO, it's when we get a release of something that we weren't expecting so soon right after KR got it. And it's such an odd feeling, like when Shadow Arena comes out and it's like, oh man, they just dropped this on us, that's exciting. Or AOB, they just drop it on us, as exciting. Or we get Mysteries of Summer at the same time as KR. Like we all get that discovery phase at the same time, like you guys are talking about. And I think at this point, they can't really make the excuse anymore that, oh, it's because NA is farther behind in gear. In a lot of senses, like the content that they're releasing, it's not even necessarily gear dependent. It's just that they're, for some reason, just want to take forever with the translations. Is that their excuse now? Like, I'm not sure really what's taking so long, but I really think we should be a week behind. I really do.
That's what bothers me. Also, is I feel like all the content they release is geared towards all players rather than like in a systematic or like stair step way of going through the world. Because when we got Calpheon, well, we started with Calpheon, but like when we started with Calpheon, then got Medea, then got Valencia, it was like kind of like stair step. But then like with Dragon, and a little bit with Kama too, it's like it was like rings and gear and areas for like both types of players, and I think that confuses a lot of people as well, which is really like because like the Kagam rings, the half of the gear in the game is literally utterly useless, like completely useless. Akuum, like Laverdo, what's the other Lemuria, like just completely useless. So it's kind of weird when it comes to content releases, and that we know that it's useless beforehand.
That's why I was really disappointed with Dragon personally. I think that a brand new area as big as Dragon and all that really came out of it was a Garmoth's Heart and very specific builds with Orkanrad's belt. Like there's nothing really super amazing. I can't remember the last time I recommended somebody go to Dragon for anything, just because we've had better alternatives already, and it just seemed like it was a very hollow content release for such a hyped up and big thing.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys feel, but I've always felt like one of the simple fixes that would impact Dragon more is just a simple trash loot price change. If there were certain places that their trash loot prices went up by half, if not twice the amount, I feel like it would start to drive a little bit more competitiveness between Kama and Dragon, which I think is what Dragon should be competing with.
I disagree slightly, only to say that I think that Dragon's pull should be at a high craft risk drop rate, which doesn't seem nearly as high as it should be.
Yeah.
Compared to say Camisil. It's definitely higher than Valencia, but Valencia's rewards is so significantly higher in terms of scrolls and trash loot, especially when you're looking at the end game spot. So I think that Dragon could have been geared towards an effective Caphras farming method, so players caught between choosing pure money-making methods between trash and scrolls and crystals and maybe rare drops, or they farm less money with trash loot, but they can earn a much higher yield of Caphras so that people can hire Caphras, especially if you're looking at low-tier grind spots, because that's excellent for newer players. They can go in, they don't necessarily need the Caphras yet, they can sell it to the higher-tier players who will always be buying that up. And so it's a feedback loop where they get lots of money and we get the Caphras that we want for our armor and weapons.
Or maybe instead, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's mostly it. So if you want to go ahead.
I was saying, yeah,
I
completely
kind
agree
to each other.
I was agreeing with like the Caphras thing, but maybe keep Kama the Caphras area and then make Dragon maybe another way to get fucking memory fragments instead of stupid scrolls that everybody hates. That'd be interesting, because the biggest reason is Valencia is so amazing is because of scroll drops, because that is the only way
everything in
to
between
get memory fragments.
Yeah.
The entire game is bottlenecked by memory fragments. So maybe make a way to get memory fragments through like Dragon mobs somehow. I don't know. I'm not 200 IQ. I'll maybe think of a way at another time. But the point
Awaken relic scroll.
Something. Just anything that is more geared towards memory fragments. So now you have, if I want to go Caphras, if I want Caphras, all right, I'll go to Kama. If I need memory fragments, maybe I'll go to Dragon. If I just want trash per hour, okay, I'll go to Valencia. I don't know. The point is, like, I have set foot in Dragon exactly zero fucking. For two reasons: Garmoth, and because I gather water in that hot spring for a long time. If I want to go AFK forever for alchemy, and that's the only two reasons I ever touch foot in Dragon ever.
Yeah, and I think is evidence as to how bad it really is that there's guilds that they've been in Medea for 4 weeks. Obviously Snake, they like Medea. They don't even grind in Dragon. Like they go to the underwater spot, they go to History, they go to Akhman, because even with a castle bonus, it's still a garbage spot to be at in the end game. And I think that Star's End really helped along Calpheon, making it a way more desirable castle. And from like a siege perspective, if Medea was more of a valuable castle, they had at least one good grind spot, it would even shake it up for endgame players that like engaging in that endgame combat, and would make Medea a much more contested region instead of it just kind of being owned by one guild that wants it because they don't really want to have to go out and fight for
Okay,
anything.
so
Like, I don't know. It
that
just
makes me
doesn't
want
make
to
sense
ask
that
that we
they.
have all these. So you said you mentioned Star's End, the one spot that made the Calvin Castle just more desirable. If you guys had one spot that you could just change in Dragon, what would it be? For me, it'd be I would say Blood Wolves, but Blood Wolves are so great. So you know what? I changed my mind.
Yeah. I think Shuriken's is the most disappointing spot, especially with Rifts being added, because the price of the Orc and Rat belt just plummeted when that was added. So I think it's a really disappointing spot for a couple of reasons. The mechanic was there to kind of make it interesting, but overall the drops aren't that great. And then I actually think it's kind of a boring spot. I think Tissa Ruins is a really nicely designed spot. I actually like the aesthetic of that spot, and I think that Blood Wolves is a really nice aesthetic spot. And I think that Shuriken would have been much cooler in an underground cave system or Tomb Ancient.
I get where you're coming from, because it's like you just
stuff.
like go to a field with trees.
It's not that interesting.
Yeah.
It just aesthetically it doesn't do anything for me. I think Tissa Ruins is really cool. It's like a swamp and you can really
I
feel it. And I
agree.
think they did a really nice job with that one. I think Blood Wolves is also kind of cool. I just think that Shuriken with a combination of aesthetically, it's quite poor. I used to grind at Basilisk unironically in 2016 when people were grinding Pirates because I liked the spot so much, even though it wasn't financially prudent to do so. I liked the spot so much. I thought it was really cool. I grinded it. Shuriken's does nothing. Its drops are terrible. The money income isn't great. And then I just think it's boring. I don't know.
And the elite grinding is so lackluster at nighttime.
Yeah, it's weirdly inefficient. I don't know.
Yeah, when I heard about it for the first time, I thought it was the coolest thing ever, because the way it was described to me was, oh, at night these mobs come out that are legitimately not exactly, but like just like fighting a geared player. It's like it's like PvP based combat, but it's like PvE, so it's very difficult. You have to like really manage and like fight around them, but they drop pretty good stuff. I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, it was nothing like that.
I
That
think
sucks.
that Shuriken was supposed to be their end-game grind spot. I'm pretty sure they expected Orc and Rad belt to be a lot more popular than it was. And you know, if the belts were 75 mil or whatever the suggested price actually is, I think that the spot wouldn't be that bad. But because of that, I think they either need to buff the spot or maybe consider adding in an extension, kind of like they did with Calpheon and Star's End, and making a real end-game spot.
I think even when Orcarad belt was maxed at like 95, we had some people that were grinding out there with loot scrolls, and if you had insane gear, you could make it competitive with like Historia, but it was never going to be better even at 95 mil belts. They needed to just either make those belts better, or now that Central Market is here, the prices could go higher if the belts were actually worthwhile. But yeah, it just doesn't feel like an in-game grind spot. It needs the kind of buff, it needs the kind of incentive that places like Historia and Star's End have. There's really no end game Medaya Castle, kind of area. There's no end game Dragon grind area. And I think part of the problem is the devs. I don't know if a different team worked on the Dragon grind spots or what, but the devs don't seem to know like what difficulty rating those places have. If you look at the AP recommendations on the map for Dragon, they're hilarious. They're not even close to correct. Like most of the AP recommendations across Valencia and Kama are pretty good. Some of them are a little bit off, but the ones in Dragon are off by like 100 AP. They're so bad. I don't know how anyone who has actually grinded in those places could, for example, suggest like 140 AP for Tashira Ruins. And so maybe the loot is scaled thinking that that's 140 AP spot when it's in fact not. I think they either need to make the spots easier so that people with those recommended AP can actually go there, or they need to increase the rewards and change the recommendations to reflect how much AP it actually takes to grind there effectively.
Namiko?
The
I agree
area is
completely.
there's a lot of dead spots in Dragon. They could very easily add another grind spot or just go under the ground.
That's the thing that pisses me off too. Is like Dragon is so beautiful. I love the area. I thought it was such a good idea. I was really excited for it. But again, yeah, I've never go there ever.
So talking about the Orc and Rads and the choice you recommended there. Sorry, you brought up the suggested price. A few things that I've heard like players say, I've even heard you guys say in your streams, is the we touched a little bit on this last week, but is the inconsistency of the marketplace. And I wanted to touch on this again just because we got a couple more people in the room as well. Some things that I've heard with the marketplace is just how some items shift in price, change in price, and by how certain items are changing in price, it doesn't show a consistency in comparison to how some other items are being impacted into the marketplace. And I wanted to get some of your guys' opinions on that as well this week. Because like one of the things that I anticipated that I thought would see go up higher, I thought Ancient Guardian seals may have gone up in price based on just like some of the shifting of certain accessories going on. We've seen Blamebo Quest buying an ass load of tree spirit belts, and they haven't changed in price. I think the ceiling for those certain items are more limited than we think.
Well, I just don't think there's a demand for tree belts. I mean, they would go up if people were buying them, but I think Blade's the only one buying them right now. If you look at them right now, they're still flooded at min price. They're not as flooded as they used to be because they're all sitting in wagons, but there's still, I mean, if you open the market right now, there's probably several hundred tree belts sitting at min price, so there's no real reason for those to go up.
I don't know why they would with rifts being a thing. I mean, is there ever a shortage on yellow accessories on the marketplace at all?
And the price of yellow accessories has also decreased heavily. So,
Mm-hmm.
like them previously, like bass belts used to be way more expensive than they were now, and were not accessible at all. Like I remember when they were sold out for a long time when people started earning a lot of money via history and stuff. But now you can basically just go buy one.
Well, tree belt's just not really a good alternative or a good intermediate piece. I mean, if you look at something like red coral earring, a pin red coral is a pretty decent alternative to like a Tet Tungrad. At certain AP brackets, that extra accuracy can give you a lot more damage. If you compare tree belts to, like a Bassi belt or a Tungrad belt, the extra accuracy just isn't that much. I don't know. They could buff it. They could make a new recipe where you like combine tree belts into a thing that you use to reform another belt and get more accuracy out of it. There's a bunch of things they could do to make those items useful again, but having reward boxes like the rifts that flood blue accessories and then not really giving anyone a reason to use them is, I mean, it's pretty predictable what happens. They end up just sitting at min price.
It's actually kind of weird because I think in general, one thing BDO can be credited with is keeping things relevant, old content relevant, old gear relevant in a lot of ways. But this is one way that seems to be an oversight. Because realistically, a tree belt would be a stepping stone piece of gear into a Basilisk belt or something else. But it's not, because they give too much free AP away with like a Sula and other free stuff like that really new players say, well, I can skip so fast into the gold accessory because they're not that expensive either, so I might as well just skip and wait for that.
Yeah.
Instead
of exactly, I agree. Like anybody with like 2 IQ knows, all right, I literally get a free main hand, I get free accessories, I get I think the only thing they don't get that's free is maybe like an awakening. And they can just grind in Valencia until they can afford the relatively cheap yellow accessories and just push for those. Or get a duo drop. Get a duo yellow accessory from a rift.
You can get a free awakening as well via the Catan awakening weapon.
You know, I laugh,
yeah,
but it
right.
is totally possible because I've gotten duo accessories from my rift boxes.
Like if you compare now to like what previously, when like gearing it was like a process, like where you would go from even just like Mark of Shadow to Crescent Rings and stuff like that. Now you just completely skip like blue accessories out as a new player because you just go Sula and then you can rush straight into the yellow accessories. There's like no need for blue accessories right now outside of like, for example, red coral earring and stuff like that. But that's like its own entity, I guess.
What do you guys think? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Choice.
I was just going to say really quick, I think they're trying to fix that problem because, we had the problem with the gold accessories sitting on the market like the Forest Ranaros rings, but then they made them meltable into Kaposhi accessories, which is something relevant. So I think they are looking at it. They just haven't gotten along to making blue accessories more relevant in that kind of way.
What do you guys think if they like doubled or tripled the enhancement rates on blue accessories? Because that would be kind of interesting because it would be more forgiving for new players. They wouldn't need crazy fail stacks. They could push for like Tet or maybe even pin tree belts and stuff, and it would be a little bit less risky. It would give people a reason to buy those items and gamble on them.
In a way, it would make sense.
Everybody would have Penroad Coral and Evasion would be dead.
I'm okay with that.
Whoa! talk.
They can
I'm starting to like this idea.
They could make red coral if if red coral's the thing holding it back. They could I don't know. They could make that
I
into
can
yellow
see
or
something like
something.
that being a thing
I
up
just
to
think it would
even
be
like
cool.
try and tet, right? But at the blue grade, for me, like it just makes sense for accessories like that and items like that on a lower grade to have a higher chance of success.
When other than red coral earring, I can't think of any blue items where making a tet or a pin attempt really makes any sense. I guess tet witches were kind of
Tree
viable for a
spirit
while as
belt
an
for
alternative.
accurate. I don't know.
Even
I'm
a tet
reaching.
tree,
Witches.
even a tet tree is not that good though if you really look at the stats, or even a
Hmm.
pin tree. Like the only thing that would make it worth going for compared to the cost of, if you're going to make a pin tree belt attempt, you have to have a tet tree belt. And, in order to make a tet tree belt, you have to have a pretty high fail stack. You have to have a bunch of belts that you're going to fail just as often as you would a gold accessory. So why not just use your stacks on a gold accessory, right? Like right now, the people who enhance blue accessories to tet or pin, most of the time are just memeing. Like they're just doing it for fun. They're not doing it because there's any incentive to do it.
Or
I
they're only
think it
going
could
up to a
be.
certain grade, like try mark a
Yeah,
shadow.
yeah, it makes sense to make like a try Schultz belt, but no one ever clicks for tet or pin unless they just don't care and they're just playing around. You have that drop off. I think that if you actually made it so that going for tet and pin on those items was an interesting way, for mid-tier players to progress, that I think that would be fun and it would be good for the economy.
The only other solution I could come up with is if they allow you to extract enhanced blue accessories for Caphras or something. So if you extract a Tetri Spirit Belt, you have a chance to get a certain, I don't know, range of Caphras, whatever they feel
That's
is
a really
worth.
interesting concept.
And then that way they would get bought out at the base grade as people try to enhance them. People go through resources to do it, and then maybe the prices will go up for new players that drop them from rifts and such. I don't know. It's
In
a
a
weird
way,
one
I
because you
kinda-
find a way that works.
No, go ahead.
No, I was mostly done. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I kind of hope they don't double down on the whole Caphras thing. I feel like Caphras is a really boring way of progression, personally, and that seems like it's the solution to everything is just like make it drop Caphras. But I don't know. I just think that the Caphras progression system just makes people so strong, and it's really unwarranted. You know what I mean? Like I think it's a really boring way to progress, and people like the excitement of seeing that next enhancement. When they brought out Caphras, it was supposed to be this is a way to guarantee yourself a pen if you wait long enough and you get enough Caphras stones. But it's very quickly turned into a way for you to boost the stats of your already existing pen gear. And I think the line got really blurred really quickly when it came to like what Caphras were supposed to be doing. And I think a lot of players are really bored of that Caphras grind.
I don't
It's
think it was ever only to be safe enhancement, though. The whole point was that many Korean players had already full pen, and this was a way for them to push past full pen without them adding a 21st tier of enhancement, which is RNG. I think a lot of people appreciate having something that's not RNG dictated that they can farm. But
Well, the devs specifically said when Caphras came out that part of the intention, or even the main part of the intention of Caphras stones, was to provide a guaranteed, but somewhat slower but guaranteed progression for players who didn't just want to gamble all the time. But that just isn't what's happened. Like pushing your Tet weapon to pin through Caphras stones is horribly
Daunting.
inefficient.
I only know
It's
a couple
not.
people who have done it, and it's like, wow, you did
Well,
that.
just the amount of Caphras stones you have to spend eclipses. Like you could just buy a pin for a fraction of what it would cost for you to put that many Caphras stones into the item.
True.
So
These people I'm talking about, this was before Caphras price changes, though, as well. But that is true.
Yeah, I mean, at 2 to 3 mil per Caphras stone, I don't remember the exact math, but it's way more than a pin. I think you're spending like 50 bill to force a Caphras from Tet to pin. It doesn't make any sense when you can just buy pins for 20 off the markets. And it especially doesn't make sense when you look at things like spending that silver on Cron stones and just gambling it. But I mean, if it was executed more properly, where like the amount of stats that you got from feeding Caphras to pin was toned down, and the amount of stones that it took to force a Tet to pin was, alleviated a little bit, so that people could actually make guaranteed gains with no gambling, albeit, somewhat slower. I think that would be closer to the actual intent of the Caphras stones. They just didn't really tune it properly.
Well, I totally agree, because as someone who's 265 AP on a class that is supposed to excel in single target damage, I feel like some players are on the old renown system and some aren't. When I run into somebody who has like Caphras pen gear, like there's some people I run into who are still at like 280 AP, but like on the border of hitting that 346 DP bracket at the same time. So I can't even touch them, and they can still absolutely one shot me, because they have not only pen gear but it's Caphras as well, and it's just the gear gap is like massive. So, in that sense.
Namiko, I see you unmuted. I feel like you got something to say here.
I was just like basically. I'm interested how people view the Caphra system, but it's like something that everyone like strives towards. So, like, how would you feel like in regards to not necessarily the removal of it, but would you guys like what prefer like additional Caphra pushes or like additional new items being released? Like, because at the end of the day, like Caphras is like you can grind, you can guarantee that after this grind, you X amount of closer to an upgrade. So it's similar to buying accessories, but it's also an upgrade at the same time. So, like, would you rather see like additional yellow accessories that push your gear even further, or would you like to still see like the Caphra system?
I mean, I myself, I enjoy the enhancement system, and for me, it feels like a double-edged sword because I'd also enjoy. I enjoy the Caphra system in the fact that it's like, I need one more AP, and if I get this many Caphras, like I can push myself to that AP, and then I can hit this bracket, which ends up being a huge impact for what I'm doing as a whole. So for like, I honestly enjoy the excitement though of just something I can enhance or I work towards and buy. It's a super rewarding feeling, and now that I'm more on a more dedicated Caphra grind right now, it's definitely a different feeling. But the sense of relief of being able to know that it's like, if I get this much, I can push for this bracket, is also kind of its own thing, and it's a different feel of excitement because it's. But yeah, that's just how I feel in short.
Yeah, it may make sense because the thing I want to raise is that like people are negative towards Caphras, but at the end of the day, like if you're 268 and that one Caphra is like a one push to 269, that's a complete difference. Like in other words, you'd have to get another piece of item. So some people, when they're pushing higher AP, their next upgrade is either a Tet to Pen accessory or like Caphras, and they're completely different worlds apart, like in regards to cost and like accessibility. So in my opinion, that's personally why I like the Caphra system. I think it's not done perfectly, 100%, but those little minor gaps of AP, it allows you to peek over just over it, so it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to gamble or save like literally tens of billions to buy an accessory or gamble into the pen accessory like area. I think it allows new players. Go on, sir.
Oh, sorry. I think they were a good addition overall. I just feel like they gave Caphras two different designs at once when maybe those should have been separated. Like they have here's a guaranteed way you can push your Tet to pin, but then they also have here's the only way that you can get more stats after pin where gambling is no longer even possible. And I think maybe those two should have been two separate things because you have all the people with pin gear driving the price of Caphras up because it's the most cost efficient way to push their gear past pin, and that just destroys any opportunity that players at Tet have to use those Caphras as the guaranteed progression that they were intended for.
Yeah, it does. I completely agree.
But then the simple solution is that to lower the cost, right? If you lower the cost required to get a safe Tet to Pen level and lower the stats you get from upgrading Tet to Pen, in terms of like, obviously you wouldn't want someone with like Tet C19 or something.
Well, the market would determine the cost of that, right? Right now you have market forces from pin players affecting Tet players. They could separate those two things. They could keep Caphras the way it is for pin armor and then add a new, maybe like a blue grade Caphras that you use to push your Tet to pin. And then that would have its own separate market price that would be affected by people in that range and whatever, they saw as cost efficient. But right now it's nowhere close to cost efficient. I mean, like I said, it's like 50 bill.
Interesting.
If you had people
different colored Caphra system to affect the different tiers of grade of gear, which would completely change the cost of those items. Interesting concept.
But would they still get stats upgrading their Tet to Pen?
Yeah, you'd get a portion of the AP on the way from Tet to Pen. I mean, I don't think it would be any cheaper than making a pen item because players would still buy those things, and it's generally more expensive to buy something that someone else made than to make it yourself, because if it's the other way around, the market just adjusts until that becomes the
My biggest inherent problem with the Kafra system is that we're able to hit both brackets at max. Like you're able to hit 309 AP and you're able to hit 346 DP at the same time. And I think that the Kafra's DP on armors is just out of this world. The fact that you can get a pen armor and you get 5 DP, but when you Kafras it up to C9, which costs less than the armor itself, you get another 10. And so I think that the physical stats, like the sheet stats on the pen gear with Kafras in it, is just way overtuned, personally.
I agree. Exactly like what I said with.
But like, what does that kind of DP mean with when you fight against someone with 290 AP? Which isn't going to happen regularly for people in this current condition of the game, but 290 makes, from what I've seen, makes any DP look like nothing though.
If you've got 280 AP, you should be able to combo even a full C9 Kafra set on a pen armor. But the tankiness is more applicable when you look at a large scale scene, which is why people like it so much, is because it protects you more. Where people are typically blown up if they don't have PA, then they get to actually survive a little bit longer with the defensive stats from pen armor on Kafras. So the problem is no one wants to build accessories because there's no point, because you can't use them in grinding. So everyone still builds AP accessories, but they still want to be somewhat tanky. So instead they invest the Kafras money. I don't know.
I guess what I'm saying mostly is I wish that the value was in the armor and not in the Kafras, because when you get a pen armor upgrade, you're like, oh great, now I can get all these stats from Kafras. It's not like, oh wow, I got the hard part out of the way, now I can get a few extra stats if I want.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I made the pin Griffin helmets, and I wanted my next piece of progression to be pin Begs, because that would have been exciting, and I would have been able to stream it, and the gambling would have been fun. But it's so much more cost effective for me to just straightforwardly feed Kafra stones into my Griffin rather than gambling on the pin Begs. It's like kind of a dumb decision actually for me to go to pin Begs unless my Griffin helm is already Kafra's 9. It's just far better to feed Kafras to the Griffin. There's really no reward in making my second pin item until my first one's fully Kafras fed.
I mean, is that just the problem with the amount it takes in armor, though? Because I know weapons, for example, like take a lot more.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the problem. I think that they just put way too many stats in Kafras levels for armor compared to the Kafras levels in weapons.
Like if armor was similar to weapons, and people wouldn't sink as much into it and wouldn't gain as much from it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily disagree with the tankiness that you get out of full C9 armor. Like, I think it makes sense, especially for large scale, and you guys did make some great points, like being 290 AP, you can still one combo or get very close to it, but they just need to rework where you get your stats from and just have less of a reliance on those Kafras.
They could front load hitting pin, put like 3 more sheet on actually hitting pin, take that away from the Kafras levels and kind of spread it out. So where you still end up with the same net total at Kafras 9, but it's just more of the value is in the item itself. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I would make it more rewarding to get the pen too.
It's a lot of food for thought. I'm sitting here like just in deep thought now based on what you guys have said. We are pretty much gonna wrap up here. I have a few more topics that I wanted to cover, but I think we're gonna go over the time that I wanted to have. So we'll save these topics for next week. While we come to a close here, was there anything else that you guys wanted to bring up topic-wise as well? I'll give you guys a chance to maybe talk about something that you had in mind, maybe you wanted to bring. I'm gonna take that moment of silence as a no.
Well, I was just curious. Namiko missed the small class balance discussion. There was a consensus that this is the current most balanced state of the game. Do you agree with that?
In regards to what? Like in what?
It is a whole
PvP.
In PvP, yeah, are we talking like large scale or?
I guess encompassing both.
Because right now, I'd say there's a clear difference between like large scale and small scale, for example, because the specific classes are like purposely selected. Like, for example, Zerkers are a huge problem in large scale right now. Like, they themselves are like their own wrecking force. And if you compare them to, let's say, a bunch of DKs or a bunch of classes like Ninjas and Kunos who have a completely different, like, influential, like, a huge influence on a node war, Horror Siege. Like, if you had a group of, if you compare every single class and you took 5 of every single class and you looked at them on that kind of basis in large scale and small scale, There is a huge difference between some classes. And that's not just basing it on one like self buff, that's basing it on utility, that's based on mobility, on CC, complete control of the fight, and how much impact you actually have on a class. So I don't think it's perfectly balanced. I would say it's better than it was before, like with the nerf and mystics and stuff like this. But there are still classes that are incredibly strong and are way too strong. And it's obvious because people prioritize those classes, for example, archers and mooses and stuff like this. And these kind of classes are very, very strong, like on an individual basis. And then obviously with stuff like Kaffers and stuff like that, that essentially these weak classes in regards to DP wise, like mooses that are usually squishy to kill, especially in like a 1v1 situation. With Kaffers and stuff like that, it allows them to exceed like way past other classes in certain situations. I don't personally think it's like balanced, but I think it's a lot better than it was before. There is clearly classes that are way stronger than other classes in like every aspect in regards to large scale and small scale. Like if you look at 30-man T1, not T1, T2 to T4, if you look at small scale, that alone shows like the difference in classes because you prioritize classes when you're capped on how many members you take, and you can see like a running trend across guilds and what type of classes they take.
And then another thing that we did cover on earlier that I'll leave for you, Namiko, is we've seen a lot of classes getting a lot of work. One of the more recent ones is we've seen Kuno. What do you think would be one upcoming class that you could see them reworking on next? One thing that I want to see myself, for example, is I want to see PvE for Ninja.
Oh, do you mean rework or do you mean like buff in different sections?
Yeah, I mean it.
Because Kuno didn't really get reworked. It just got buffed in different areas.
Okay, fair to say. Then just rework, or if not, change in comparison. Like, what class would you like to see some love to?
Dark Knight and Tamer. The main reason why I say those two classes is because both PvE and PvP, maybe Tamer PvE element-wise, more than PvP, but Dark Knight is overall. Like, Dark Knight itself as a class right now has... People classify their scaling as like one of the highest, and that's because of the amount of damage and like the percentages that they have in Awakening, for example, and how hard hitting their pre-Awakening is. But they lack... it even comes down to how fast the animation is. Like the animation of DK's abilities right now, I think it's 2.5 DK abilities is the cast of 1 and a little bit of a witch ability. So if a witch casts Toxic Flood and then does Volatile Pulse, you can do Lunacy and you can do Wheel of Fortune and just look into doing Spirit Hunt by the time they finish casting one spell, essentially. So the DK animations are so slow, and a lot of the animation itself, damage isn't actually applied. So, for example, they looked at the Witch, Shift F, which is super strong right now. It's the one that applies the evasion debuff as well. But they increased the animation speed because half of that animation was the Witch like casting the spell, and the other half was the actual damage being applied. But DK doesn't have that kind of like love right now. Like they're using DK as like a model. Like every kind of event always has some sort of DK screenshot on the front or DK in like some sort of outfit. And it's always like the front page of all the events. But the class itself right now in its current state is it's not necessarily weak in regards to like if you have a 280 DK, they're gonna shred you, right? If they slanted into Lunacy Foot Wheel or whatever, you're instagon. But in regards to like utility, in regards to sustain, in regards to animation speed, that class itself right now is bottom tier because of that. Like, if you try super average trading with any other class in the game at the same gear, you'll be out traded, and you don't have sustain. And that's just PvP wise. If you look at PvE of the class itself has very little to no sustain in regards to PvE. I'm not talking mana wise or stamina wise, that you can sustain your mana very well, and you can sustain your stamina very well if you know how to play the class. It's not a problem. But health sustain, for example, Star's End, Hystria, even like Underwater Area, for example, these kind of areas, like Hystria is really considered an easier place to grind. You can you can see the mobs a lot, but for example at Star's End or Underwater, it's pretty hard for a DK to grind because of how many potions they chunk through. And like for example, I come from Mystic. I played several classes now, and I played them all to a really high end game standard. And the difference it like between classes that have self-sustain and classes that don't have self-sustain is incredibly unfair in my opinion. I don't think that a Mystic or like any other kind of class that has crazy amount of sustain should have that sustain over another class. I think every class, especially PvE, if we look at this as a whole, I think every class should have the same sustain levels. Like I don't see why a DK has to burn through 500 potions for a few hours of grinding and Mystic has to burn for 0. Or Ranger.
I agree. I
like-
think PvE should be consistent among all classes to like the best extent they can.
Yeah, like for example, why does a ninja grind slower than like the mystic, or like why is there such a discrepancy between the god tier grinders and the low tier grinders? It's obvious that they can change PvE on an individual basis. They've shown that multiple times now. They've changed like Striker, for example, specifics of abilities. They made 100% crit. They've made damage increase and stuff like this. So there's no reason why they can't change elements of the lower tier classes. And it's obvious which classes are lower tier, because if you look at any kind of endgame grinding spot, there's a very small set of classes that are still grinding there from that class. So
If you have somebody creating a class to perform better in PvE, then you know something's fucked up. Like it's
Yes.
fine to create a class for PvE because you like it better, but if you have to create a class to perform better in PvE, which is literally the straight up money making, which is what drives this entire force of the game, then yeah, there's something wrong.
yeah, but it's like there's multiple classes that have this problem. Like there's like Ranger, Dark Knight, Tamer. I can't think of the other classes that hunt right now that have this issue, but those three mainly are classes that can grind, and they can grind. Yeah, they can grind decent. You know, they're not slow grinders. I'm not saying that they're slow grinders, but sustain is a huge thing that should be covered, and I don't see any reason why that you can't add health per hit in PvE, for example, which would completely nullify, especially on like certain abilities, for example, right? Like Shy has it right now. You can get skill add-ons that give health per hit on multiple abilities. Like Shy itself right now is a very high amount hitting, low damage percent, but high amount of hits, which allows the class to have essentially infinite sustain. Even it's completely like unprotected essentially outside of like one pre-awaken ability that you properly use for grinding. But outside of that, they have like no protection and no CC, right? But they can still out-sustain like any other class in the game because of their own self-sustain that they have. So I think that should be applied across the board to every single class. I don't see why there's such a big difference between it. They can clearly tweak PvE elements, and I think they should do it across all the classes that still haven't been touched. I don't know what they're currently doing in this, or if they've completely forgot about every other class after they buff Striker, Witch Wizard, and Kuno. But hopefully they'll look at it and they'll be like, okay, we'll just make not every class the same, because you still want a class to have its own identity. But I don't see why some classes need potions when they're grinding endgame and other ones don't. I think that alone already shows you there's such a difference. And some classes can grind certain areas, and some classes can't. Like, why can Mystic grind History faster than Striker when it's his like counterpart? And it's like completely different world. So that's my personal opinion on it after the run.
Oh, I muted myself by accident there. Okay, and let me just shoot this at your way. Vanilla WoW, we gonna see you on there?
Vanilla WoW, yes. I will be playing Vanilla WoW, but I'm not sure how it's going to go exactly in regards to as a whole. I think it's got a few months, maybe weeks max longevity in it, but I will be playing it.
What side are you guys all gonna be on? I'm gonna go for Horde.
Whatever Anfield and Nico decide.
Anyone else? I know some of you guys are playing this.
I would probably go Horde, but I'm not playing.
Choice.
If that helps.
Horde or Alliance?
Did you say me?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm not playing WoW.
I
I'm
know,
not
but-
playing WoW. I got way too much shit to do in BDO, man.
I know, but now I'm just saying Horde or Alliance. Now we have to know.
I have no idea what either of those mean, but I guess Horde because I like that word better.
Ah, good choice.
That's
good
why I
choice.
chose Horde.
Good choice. Okay, guys. Well, thanks for being here. And thanks again for your guys' time. Hopefully we can get together and do this again next week. If you guys want to check out any of these creators, there will be links in the description down below. Make sure you guys give all of these guys a follow, as all of them do stream. Some of these guys do make YouTube content as well. So please make sure to take a look at these guys. Guys, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thank
No
you.
problem.
See you next time, man.